Hey loves, welcome back to Shadow Notes. I'm Scarlett, your guide, your sarcastic big sister in the dark, and the one who will absolutely remind you that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is nothing. Yep, that's it. You heard me right. Nothing. Stopping, taking a breath, hitting pause before you run yourself off the cliff of overthinking, overcommitting, or overachieving. Now, don't get me wrong. I am the last person who naturally slows down. I'm a Virgo, if that tells you anything. My default is go, go, go. My brain thinks it's auditioning for a NASCAR race. My dogs think they're auditioning for America's Got Talent. And life just does what life does. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes the pause isn't weakness. Sometimes the pause is survival. Also, I've got some crazy cats going on today on top of the dogs. I don't know what Azrael is batting around under the door, but I'm sorry. She's being very loud. So, back to what I was saying. So, I don't mean just in those big, dramatic, life-changing moments. I mean, in the tiny ones too. Like, when you're about to fire off a text that you know you shouldn't send, pause. When you're about to spiral down a rabbit hole of what ifs, take a pause. And when your brain is screaming at you that you must do 10 things before noon, or you're a failure as a human being, pause. It's almost a little witchy, the way pausing works. Like casting a circle. Not to keep the world out, but to give yourself just enough space to remember who you are and what actually matters. So today, we're diving into why pausing might actually save you. Save your relationships, save your sanity, maybe even save your magic. We'll talk stories, we'll talk shadows, and we'll talk about those sneaky little moments where pressing the brakes changes the whole road ahead. And listen, you're not in this alone. You're here with me, in this cozy, slightly unhinged corner where we're figuring it out together. So grab your tea, your coffee, or whatever questionable potion you've got nearby, and let's explore the pause. So I'm sure that you are well aware, and I don't have to tell you, but we live in a culture obsessed with speed. Fast replies, fast solutions, fast everything. If you don't answer a text in under 5 minutes, someone might think that you're ignoring them. If you don't immediately get over something, then you're being dramatic. If you hesitate, even slightly, before making a choice, you're labeled indecisive. But here's the thing. Life isn't built for constant motion. And honey, neither are we. Think about it. How often do you actually hear yourself think? How often do you notice that tiny tug in your stomach? Or that quiet, uh-oh, whisper in your brain before you act? Probably less than you would like, if I had to guess. Because The culture around us says it's go, 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 and shoves the pause button into the shadows. So I kind of like to picture it like you're driving down the interstate at 90 miles an hour with no dangers, of course, because this is a visualization. There's no other cars, no random animals, nothing. You're just hauling tail down the interstate. So yeah, you're moving, but you can't see the signs. You can't admire the trees and the scenery. And you're almost guaranteed to miss your exit. The pause is slowing the car down. It's giving yourself room to notice. Hey, there's an exit here. Hey, there's beauty here. There's a choice that I can make that doesn't come from autopilot. So let me tell you a story about a day last week. I was running around my house like a mad person, juggling a notebook, my coffee, and baby Dahlia had something in her mouth that I was trying to figure out what it was. Trying to do 5 things at once. And then, out of nowhere, my coffee hit the floor. And instead of doing what I wanted and just screaming, which, let's be honest, would have been anyone's natural reaction, I just paused. I grabbed a towel, I knelt down, I cleaned it up, and I actually looked at the floor that I had been rushing across. In that 2-minute pause, I noticed a little smudge that I had been meaning to clean for a few days. 2 minutes of slowing down revealed something that had been hiding in plain sight. That's the magic. The pause doesn't just prevent chaos. It gives you clarity. You start seeing things you didn't notice before. Patterns, behaviors, little signals from people around you. For instance, I've learned that if someone texts me angrily, my first instinct is to just fire back. But when I pause, even for just 30 seconds, I realize that the anger isn't about me at all. Sometimes it's because of what's going on in the background. They're tired, or hungry, or struggling in ways I can't even begin to imagine. The pause lets you step into empathy without losing yourself. And honestly, the pressure to move fast seeps into everything, even our inner circles. You text a friend, and they don't respond immediately, and suddenly you start overthinking. They didn't text back because they're busy or tired or literally breathing in peace. But your brain screams, "Oh my God, they must be mad at me. What have I done?" That's the speed culture that's invading your nervous system. That's why pausing matters. It gives your brain the chance to catch up. And as always, my loves, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I've lived the majority of my life in fast forward. I thought it was efficiency. I thought it was ambition. But really, it was exhaustion in disguise. I learned the hard way that when I don't pause, I start collecting unnecessary chaos like trophies, and not the cool sparkly kind, the kind that drags you down. And here's where our little community vibe sneaks in. Pausing does not mean isolating yourself. In fact, it often makes you more connected. You notice the people who are actually there for you. You notice the energy you bring to others, and whether it's reciprocal or not. I like to think of it as a subtle, collective agreement. We're all pausing together, quietly supporting each other without pressure. It's like being in a club that doesn't need a secret handshake. Now, here's a little secret. Slowing down doesn't mean that you stop caring. It doesn't mean that you're lazy or avoiding responsibility. It means that you're choosing how you engage. You're deciding where your energy goes, who deserves it, and when. It's radical self-respect disguised as hesitation. And I mean, let's be real. Pausing also gives you the chance to be a little sneaky about life. You get to notice the hidden patterns. You get to see who's really listening, who's really asking for help, who's just tossing a responsibility into your lap. Pausing is like having a cheat code for social navigation. You get to see the world a little clearer, and you respond a little wiser. So here's another story. In the past, I got invited to a networking event that sounded absolutely exhausting. My gut immediately said no, but I hesitated anyway. Fast culture screaming, opportunity, opportunity. So I paused and spent about 20 minutes walking around the yard, talking to my dogs, drinking my coffee. And that pause saved me from a night of forced smiles and awkward conversations. Instead, I ended up having a spontaneous, soul-healing text convo with a friend who really needed to talk. And that's the thing. Pausing often redirects us towards better energy, better moments, and even better people. So if you take nothing else from this section, here's the takeaway. Slowing down is not weakness. Hesitation is not failure. Pausing is your superpower. And in a world obsessed with speed, choosing to pause is radical. It's subtle rebellion, self-respect, and social finesse all rolled into one. Okay, so now that we have romanced the idea of pausing, let's geek out a little. Don't worry, I'll keep it digestible, and yes, of course, I'll throw in some sass, because science without flair is just boring. So here's what actually happens in your brain when you hit pause. Your prefrontal cortex, the little part of your brain that makes decisions, solves problems, and tries not to say oops in every social situation, gets a little breathing room. Your amygdala, which is basically the panic, danger, yell now part of your brain, stops screaming for a hot second. And just like that, you can think before you act. Notice your emotions, and maybe, just maybe, choose kindness instead of reacting from stress. I've read studies that show even just a 10-second pause can reduce impulsive decisions. 10 seconds. That's literally just the time it takes to take a deep breath, sip your tea, or watch your dog stare at you like you've lost your mind. But those 10 seconds, they're magical. Speaking of magical, let me tell you about a time that I almost ruined a friendship because I didn't pause. A friend of mine sent me a text that at first glance seemed a little snippy. Let me also add in here that this could be about any of my friends. So don't be thinking, oh, she's talking about me. So my instinct is to fire back, obviously. But I remembered that pause, those precious few seconds. And instead of typing a hot take, I went, got myself some ice water. I came back. I reread the text and realized they were actually venting about a problem that was completely removed from me. That tiny pause saved my sanity, my friendship, and honestly, my anxiety. And so here's where it gets even cooler. Pausing, it doesn't just make you calmer. It makes you smarter. Research shows that when we slow down, we give our hippocampus, and I'm so sorry if I said that wrong, but we give the memory and learning center a chance to catch up. Have you ever noticed that when you rush through a conversation or a task, you forget half of it? Pausing is basically giving your brain a chance to file things correctly. Like hitting the save on your mental desktop before the windows start crashing all over the place. But don't worry, this isn't just nerd talk to make you feel fancy. The practical side of pausing, decision making, creativity, problem solving, and here's my favorite, noticing opportunities. So here's another story. I was walking through the farmer's market last month, half racing through because I thought, well, I have stuff to do. And when I paused for just a moment and spotted a tiny stall selling handmade candles that I'd walked past a dozen times and never noticed, I paused and started chatting with the maker, and I ended up discovering a scent that I now use in my ritual corner. That pause turned an ordinary day into a little treasure hunt. That's the subtle magic that I'm talking about. And the beauty behind all of this science, it's inclusive. Pausing isn't a skill reserved for monks or CEOs. It's for anyone. The tired parent juggling snacks and homework. Pause. The stressed out friend overthinking every single emoji. Pause. The entrepreneur building a tiny empire with an apothecary, a podcast, and maybe some secret community vibes. Definitely pause. So let's take a moment to talk about how pausing creates community energy, even if it's subtle. When you pause before reacting to someone, you're giving them space. You're listening. You're showing empathy, even in the tiniest ways. And that ripple effect, it's contagious. The more people pause, the more thoughtful the environment becomes. It's like a quiet, invisible network of patience, understanding, and of course, maybe even some mischief. Because hey, Part of the pause is noticing the weird little things that everyone else is rushing past. Another short story here. A couple weeks ago, I hosted a tiny group hangout. Just a few friends, some snacks, chaos, the usual. One of my friends started to vent mid-rant, and instead of jumping in with advice or my hot take, which is damn near impossible for me, I paused, and then we all paused. And that pause allowed her to really unpack without interruption. The energy shifted. It became collaborative, not reactive. It felt like a tiny living proof of how slowing down changes the group dynamics. And let's not forget reflection. Pausing allows for self-check-ins. Ask yourself, why in the world am I reacting this way? Why did that hurt me? What actually matters in this moment? It's not therapy level analysis in every single breath, but a subtle, ongoing conversation with yourself that keeps you grounded. And trust me, the more you practice, the more you start noticing patterns that you didn't see before. Triggers, habitual thoughts, moments where you could have chosen differently, and maybe better. So the bottom line here is science is simple, but the effect is enormous. Pausing recalibrates your brain chemistry, your social intuition, and even your daily experiences. And when we combine that with intention and subtle community vibes, we start noticing life and each other in ways that we have been rushing past for years. All right, so now we're getting to the juicy hands-on part. You felt the science. You've seen the stories. But how do we actually pause like bros in everyday life without overthinking it and spiraling into a Zen retreat that you don't have time for? So let's start small. Literally micro pauses. I like to call these the tiny breaths of power. This could be a single inhale and exhale before you respond to a text, before you scroll, or before you make a big choice. I'll admit, the first time I tried this, I paused before replying to a snarky message with added snark from my end. And then my baby dog Dahlia jumped on my lap like she was judging me with those big brown eyes. That pause turned into laughter instead of a flame war. Micro pauses are like the tiny cheat codes for life. Next, let's try the look and notice pause. This one's fun because it turns ordinary chaos into secret treasure hunting. It's as simple as stopping for 30 seconds to really look at your surroundings. Maybe it's noticing the light on your desk, the way that your plants are always stretching towards the sun, which is a personal favorite of mine, or that one neighbor who's always mysteriously carrying a loaf of bread. It's me. I'm that neighbor. I have an obsession with sourdough. Not only does this reset your mind, but it subtly trains you to notice details, like a little secret observer in your own life, which, if you're building community vibes, like we are here, it's absolutely golden. And then there's my personal favorite. Pause rituals for transitions. This is for when you move from one thing to the next. Work to home, scrolling to cooking, chaos to calm. Even a 60-second ritual like lighting a candle, stretching, or scribbling a one-line journal note marks the mental boundary. And I swear, this alone has saved my sanity more than once. One evening, after a long day of trying to record content, I lit a candle and just paused. I watched the flame dance for like a whole minute. And when I came back to my notes, my ideas flowed like a river instead of a little trickle. Now, subtle community energy alert. These rituals are not just self-serving. When you model mindful pauses, your energy shifts the environment. Friends, family, co-workers, they notice, even unconsciously. You start to become the person who pauses, and suddenly the group dynamics are calmer, kinder, and most importantly, in my opinion, more intentional. It's like quietly teaching the world to breathe with you without saying a word. So let's throw in some fun little quirky hacks. I call these pause prompts. Sticky note reminders. Literally, stick a note somewhere silly. Pause before chaos. Or breathe, not rage. It's silly, it's dumb, it's fun, and it works. Audio cues. What about a 5-second sound clip, like a chime or a cat meowing? It triggers a mini pause before you react. Lucy's meow works very well for this. What about pause walks? Every time you leave the house or go for a walk, commit to 2 minutes of silent observation. No music, no phone, just noticing. You would be shocked at how much the world opens up when you just pause. So last week, I tried a pause walk challenge. I told myself, no doom scrolling, no rushing, just noticing. And by the end, I had discovered a tiny flower growing in a crack on the sidewalk. I overheard a hilarious conversation, and I had 3 deep ideas for episodes for this podcast. That's the power of integrating pause into action. It's literally like life hacking your attention. And let's not forget the ritual that I secretly call the group pause. So, if you're with friends or in a meeting, sometimes just suggest a collective pause. Stretch, sip water, notice surroundings. It's gonna subtly reset the energy. One of my friends has even joked that pausing together is our little tiny ethical cult ritual. And honestly, I don't think they're wrong. Community energy, check. Ethical, check. Sass, check and double check. Finally, remember, pausing isn't a one and done deal. It's a practice. Some days you nail it. Some days you're gonna react like a toddler with espresso. But even missing a pause is a pause in itself. Because noticing you didn't take that opportunity to pause is just more awareness building. By layering tiny micro pauses, notice pauses, transition rituals, and subtle group pauses into your day, you're not just surviving. You're cultivating presence, attention, and energy that spreads to everyone around you. And isn't that kind of what we all secretly want? A little oasis of calm chaos where everyone benefits from just slowing down. So now that we've got the practical side locked down, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Pausing isn't just about surviving daily chaos. It's about shaping your life, relationships, and environment in subtle but powerful ways. So first off, let me tell you a little story about a time I really underestimated the power of a pause. I was in the middle of a work spiral, like full-on, non-medicated, ADHD, multitasking meltdown. And my baby Dahlia decides that my lap is the perfect napping spot. Normally, I would just move her off of me and kept typing like the caffeine-powered robot that I was. But that day, I paused. And just a literal 2-second inhale, okay, breathe. And I just let her curl up. That moment completely reset my mood. By the end of the hour, I had solved 3 problems that had me banging my head against the wall and even found a new approach for a podcast episode. The lesson: pausing creates space. Space for clarity, creativity, and empathy. Now, here's the philosophical side. In a world that glorifies the hustle and always on productivity, pausing is a radical act. It's saying, I matter. My energy matters. How I respond matters. And when you embrace that fully, it naturally ripples outward. People notice it, even if they don't consciously know why. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force, a quiet invitation for others to slow down and be mindful too. This is where our subtle community energy sneaks in a little. The way that you show up can make this space feel welcoming, supporting, and intentional. So let's talk about the ripple effects for a minute. You pause. You handle a situation differently. Someone notices. And then maybe they pause in their next interaction. Suddenly, a tiny micropause becomes a movement of awareness in your circle. It's ethical, it's intentional, and yes, it's slightly magical. I've personally seen this with friends, co-workers, and even strangers in coffee shops. Pausing isn't just self-care, it's community care. And because I love stories, and I seem to just be full of them today, here's a wild one. I was at the local farmer's market feeling frazzled, and I paused before engaging with a stressed vendor. Instead of reacting with irritation, I just smiled and genuinely acknowledged their work. That micro moment completely flipped the interaction. They cracked a joke. I laughed. and both of our energies lifted. Later, I realized that I had started a chain of smiles that spread to everyone in the tiny line behind me. That single pause multiplied. Tiny ripple, big effect. Now, of course, this section, or any section, if we're being completely honest, wouldn't be complete without a little sass. Pausing doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't mean that you won't mess up. It just means that you try, notice, adjust, and show up better next time. And that, my loves, is the real philosophy here. It's about being conscious in a world that constantly encourages unconscious chaos. So, how do you make this philosophy stick? I like to combine reflective pauses with mini post-mortem moments. At the end of my day, take 5 minutes. Look back at where you reacted automatically and consider where a pause could have changed the outcome. No judgment, just observation. It's like giving your future self the chance to respond more wisely tomorrow. Finally, let's touch on a community building point. When you integrate pauses and mindful reflection into your life, you're modeling something that benefits more than just you. Friends, colleagues, family, they can feel the energy shift. You create a subtle culture of calm intention. It's not about control. It's about influence through presence. And isn't that kind of the dream? To build a life and circle that feels grounded, supportive, and alive without ever forcing it. All right, we've wandered through the art of pausing. I've sprinkled in maybe too many stories, philosophies, tiny ripple effects, and now let's tie it all together. First off, thank you for sticking around. I know this episode is way longer than usual. I mean, we were at 37 minutes and counting when I started this section. And honestly, that's kind of the point. Sometimes you need the long content to really dig into something, to let the ideas breathe. Speaking of which, I'm curious. Do you like the longer episodes, or would you rather have something shorter and punchier? I honestly don't mind either way, because I've been wanting to make these deep, rich dives for a while, but also I get it. ADHD here, attention spans can be tricky, and I want you to actually listen and, maybe absorb and learn from what I have to say. So drop me your thoughts. I'm flexible. This show is as much yours as it is mine. So now let's talk next steps. Things you can actually do to take this pause philosophy into your life. First, tiny moments matter. Stop, breathe, notice, and reflect. That alone can shift your day. Second, extend that pause to your interactions. Notice your energy. Notice the energy of others and intentionally respond rather than react. Third, consider keeping a little reflective journal. Even 5 minutes a day can help you track your patterns and see where your pauses create ripple effects. And because I love blending practicality with fun, let's talk community building. I would love to know ways that you would like to make this more interactive. Should we start a Discord? where we can share reflections, ideas, and maybe even little ritual-like challenges for pausing, or an email thread where you can send in questions, suggestions, or little wins from your day. I would absolutely love to hear what you think could feel safe, fun, and intentional. Basically, a place where we can connect, share energy, and gently grow together. Also, yes, the coffee is still around. You can find it at coffee.com/shadow and sass. I'm not great with it. I'm trying. Please just give me some grace with that. Social media is not my expertise. I just want to sit here and talk about things and maybe help some people learn along the way. So I'm trying, but you can still find it at coffee.com/shadow and sass if you want to support the podcast. Help me experiment with longer episodes, or eventually help fund the dream of making real video content. That's the best place. Actually, speaking of real video content, I'm hoping to be able to do that soon. Right now, I have a cat that lives on my desk and 3 dogs going crazy behind me. So, I've been kind of putting that off, but I'm hoping to get that started here soon. So even if you're just sharing the show or sending ideas, that's amazing support. You're already building this community with me. Speaking of ideas, I'd love your input on what to explore next. Maybe more deep dives, rituals, reflections on creativity, anxiety, or just everyday chaos. Maybe all of the above. Think of this as your invitation to co-create, because nothing here is just me talking at you. It's me talking with you. So here's the takeaway. Pausing isn't just a moment. It's a practice, a philosophy, and subtly a community energy. It helps you, it helps others, and it shapes the kind of environment that you want to live in. And the beautiful part, you can start anytime, even mid-chaos, even when your 3 giant dogs are demanding attention, even when the world seems a little upside down. All right, loves, that's it for this episode. Thank you for spending time with me, for listening, for thanking, and for being open to the tiny, powerful act of pausing. I'll be back next time with more reflections. Obviously more stories. And of course, more sass, because let's be real, I just can't help myself. Before you go, hit me up on email, shadowandsass.com. Nope, I do that every time. shadowandsass@gmail.com. Check out the coffee and let me know your ideas for building our community space. Let's make this something we all enjoy, something that's grounded, intentional, and of course, fun.